Okay, I wanted to make a video about a recent psak that came out. Several Chashuva Rabbanim, including Rav Wosner, expressed a psak about the Indian hair sheitel. Now, I personally agree with this psak. However, in my house, we don't have, my wife does own an artificial sheitel that we bought for her to wear during the chasana, and since then I don't think she's ever really worn it, as far as I know. Certainly not in public. It's just, we follow the old-fashioned way, and my wife doesn't wear a sheitel. It's for many reasons, not the least of which is she says it's not very comfortable. She doesn't like the way it looks, and not just for frumkeit reasons, for fashion reasons and practical reasons and comfort reasons. But and that's how we follow in our house. But that doesn't mean that everyone has to follow the same thing. That's really the point that I want to bring out here. And that's really what I want to talk about. So, certain, popular rabbis, particularly, popular speakers, internet rabbis, things, who I have a lot of respect for. I don't have issues with them. I like them very much. They have expressed, that, look, finally, the Rabbonim have come out and made this psak, and this is the halacha for all Klal Yisrael, that we that we can no longer use any human hair sheitel, because all the human hair sheitel are most likely made with Indian hair, and it's a avodah zarah, and it's takrevis avodah zarah, and there's an isser that's it's a major isser, and isser hanoah, and that there's no takana for such an isser, and that's it, and that's the psak, and that apparently this is a psak that's binding on all Klal Yisrael now, and that's the way this is being presented. Now, the answer I have for that is we don't have a Sanhedrin. And so, even though I personally agree with that approach, that against sheitlach, for many reasons, I recognize that that's not for everybody. Everybody has their own, and really a lot of things are cultural. For the most part, in most communities, it's whatever your mother did. If, the question is, well, how far back did your mother wear sheitel? That's the question. But on the other hand, most likely, especially in America, you would have a time when they'll say, probably the women didn't cover their hair at all, if you're coming from American background. Even they were from, even a lot of Rebbitzins didn't cover their hair at all. And things change with time, cultures change, communities change, and it just is what it is. And probably, the question is like this: if someone is not going to cover their hair at all, or they're only going to cover their hair with a sheitel, and the only sheitel they have is this Indian hair sheitel or this Suffolk Indian hair sheitel, is it better to not cover your hair or to wear a sheitel that might be an Isser Hana? Now, if it's mamish and Isser Hana, you probably would say it's better not to cover your hair. And because it's an Isser Hana, and you have to recognize the halacha of covering your hair. Where does it come from? Yes, we can point to a pasuk, that in Parshas Naso, that would seem to indicate that there's a biblical obligation for a woman who's married to cover her hair. Others might say that the obligation applies even to a single girl. There's a question, Panuya, would it mean someone who was married is no longer married? Different questions. But then there's other opinions that say these days it's not customary to cover your hair, so you don't have to cover your hair at all. And there are halachic considerations like that. And so when you have this question and so that might relegate the whole idea of covering your hair as a minhag today. And so when you have an issue of takrevis avodah zara, so then maybe it would be better not to cover your hair than to wear a sheitel that's takrevis avodah zara. Right? I mean, these are just considerations you have to have in mind. And say they don't have anything else to cover their hair with. They don't have a tichel. They don't have a hat. They don't have anything. They don't have a spitzel, whatever, So what is it? How do we answer that? How do you approach that? Simply stated, we don't have a Sanhedrin. Everyone has to follow their own Rav. I would say, most Rabbanim would say, it's better if you're not going to cover your hair to wear a sheitel, even the Indian hair sheitel, because there's also a suffix about this to krevis avodah zara. But wait, suffix deraisa l'chumra. Obviously, you don't have anything to worry about if you just wear spitzel or whatever. But whatever it is, everybody. The point that I'm saying here is I'm demonstrating here how there can be many different questions. That there was the tshuva from Rav Mashash from Morocco. You would think in Morocco, the non-Jews also cover their hair, so what issue is there? The thing is, Morocco became more of a modern country by that time. And French women and so forth, and they weren't covering their hair. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, he said, it's lechatchila to wear a wig. Although the thing was like, if you look, there was a sikha, he said, if a woman is going to see Eisenhower, it was the president at the time, and she's wearing a tichel or a hat, she'd probably take off the tichel or the hat to go see Eisenhower, but she wouldn't take off a wig. And so it's not because it covers all the hair, because you could also shave your hair also, that's the other question, there's the takana from the Vadar Baharatzos, which would seem to indicate that all Ashkenazim are supposed to shave their hair, the Chassam Sofer, not someone who is not ostensibly Hasidish. It's not a Hasidish thing. People think it's a Hasidish thing. It's really an Ashkenazi thing, that all the Ashkenazim are supposed to shave their hair. But in America, it's Mayat Hadaras V'Lavavis, and people got weaker, and the same thing with the Sheitlach, same thing with shaving the head, all these inyanim. But again, halachically, from Me'ekar Adin, you also have to recognize, it's yes, on one hand, these are things that probably everyone should do. But on the other hand, people don't. And so can we find a way to say that what people are doing, that's what Rav Mashash in his tshuva, he wasn't saying that women shouldn't cover their hair, but he's trying to find some way to be malamed schus on those who don't. And so the same thing, you could say the same thing, to be malamed schus on those who choose to wear a sheitel. And it could be malamed schus, in various ways. So all these questions, you have to go and speak to your own Marahara, speak to your own Rav, and do what. And also, it's probably ideal to follow the minhagim of your local community. If you belong to a particular community, I don't see a problem being more strict, although some people might feel that it's mechzekura or something to be more strict, meaning like if everybody wears a sheitel and you want to wear a tichel, a spitzel, whatever, and which is it mechzekura? Are you being arrogant if you go stricter? Probably not. But on the other hand, at least in public, if everyone has a particular custom, you should be at least as strict as what the norm is in your community. If you live in a community where a lot of women don't cover their hair, again, it's not mechzekura to cover your hair. It's a midas chasidus, probably. It's a proper thing to do. It's a good thing to do. But again, me'ikar adin, it's the same thing, wearing a yarmulke and so forth. If certainly wearing a yarmulke is much less of a din than covering the hair, But my point is that each community should follow their Rav and their norms, and these Rabbanim are speaking for their own communities and for their own Talmidim and Talmidos and their own kehillah. And if you're part of one of those kehillas, if you are a member of Rav Wosner's kehillas, you follow his psak. But not everybody has to do just because this one said like this. And even if you are part of the kehillah, there are many communities where you have a Rav who holds a particular opinion. And many people in the community, if their mother, didn't do like this, you see this like often, especially in Satmar, especially in Brooklyn. You don't see it as much in Monroe, but in Brooklyn it's very common. Satmar Rebbe was against wearing a sheitel, but he said if you do wear a sheitel, you wear a covered sheitel. So there are some who don't cover their sheitel, only cover their sheitel sometimes, and there's some who wear a covered sheitel, even though that's not what Satmar Rav really wanted. And there's some who and more who follow what the Rebbe wanted. Because they're not brainwashed in a cult. They do what they want. People do what they want or what their parents did and so forth. And that's how it really should be. People should think for themselves. It's interesting, they say the Satmar Rav, when he was Rav in Satmar, and people should make their own decisions, and that's people should be aware what the halachas are and make their own decisions. When the Satmar Rav was Rav in Satmar, he would speak in the Hasidic shul and say what an aver is to wear sheitel, because women were wearing sheitlach, and he preferred that they should wear spitzlach, and their mothers, wore tichlach, and they were becoming more modern, going away from what their mothers did. When he would go to the town shul, he was the Rav of the whole town. Ashkenaz shul, he would say what a big mitzvah is to wear sheitel. Why? Because a lot of women didn't cover their hair at all, and so for them it would be a step up to wear sheitel. That also shows that Satmar Rav was not like pushing his agenda on everybody. He was understanding each person their own way. Ba'asher Husham, it's like Rav Victor Miller, who I had the schus to see once or twice, 2 or 3 times maybe. He said he was always fire and brimstone against television, right? Although when he said, but the television was invented so the Lubavitcher Rebbe should put his Farbrengens on television. And that's a beautiful thing. And that he was very supportive and happy with. And one time, and he was against television movies, for many reasons, and he spoke publicly against these things. Myrish Yeshiva was a balabas there in Rav Victor Miller's shul, and he said that he overheard Rabbi Miller tell another balabas who was having shalom bayis issues. Maybe it was him. I don't know. You should go take your wife to the movies. Meaning Rav Miller understood not everybody's holding where everybody is. So this issue, and it's not really looked down on people who are different. We are all Ovdei Hashem. The story I told with Chaim Daskel, that he went to, they used to call him Reb Chaim from Yerushalayim. He was a nephew of the Sklener Rebbe Shlita, but L'chaim Tovim. So Reb Chaim, he went to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he said he wanted bracha, he should do kiruv. Kiruv literally means to bring close. And Lubavitcher Rebbe says, who are we to say who's close and who's far? Let's just make friends. And that's how we should really live our lives. Don't be an extremist. If you want to be frum for Zichalein, Gesundheit hate. It's a beautiful thing. Tavli Alev bracha. Tavli Aleim bracha. Tavli Alecha bracha. But if you have different considerations, as long as you're following the basic halachas, and even if you're not, we still have to love you, as long as you're a believer, as long as you're not an enemy of Torah, and you're trying your best, and you're growing, and you're working on yourself, and you see improvement, and maybe you didn't put on tefillin ever, and now you put on once a week. It's a big thing. Don't think it's a small thing. And that's really the point of this video. Even if you can't put on the tefillin every day and you do it once a week, it's a gewaldige Zach. And if once in a while you have time to do it 2 or 3 times a week, and maybe 1 week you have time to do it every day, don't feel that you can only do it once a week just because you do. I heard a story. There was a Yid. He's very controversial. I'm not going to mention his name. A singer. He was a Rav of a shul also, whether people know who I'm talking about. He said he was in Waco, Texas, and he went to the mikveh there. There's a mikveh in Waco, Texas, would you believe it? And he met this guy who looked like a big cowboy, and he said, oh, how are you doing? And he said, let me tell you something. My wife isn't Jewish. I don't always, sometimes I eat on Yom Kippur, sometimes I fast. Sometimes I daven, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I eat kosher, sometimes I don't. Right now I feel like going to the mikveh. Why is that? He said before the war, he was a little boy. He was, I guess, by the Merchaim, by the Vishnitzer. And the Vishnitzer Rebbe said, Yingele, the Yetzer Hara, you're going to grow up, the Yetzer Hara is going to tell you, the devil's going to tell you, I know what you did before, how dare you go do a mitzvah right now? You know what you did, and you know what you're going to do tomorrow, and you think you could go do a mitzvah now? And the Vishnitzer Rebbe told this little boy, don't listen to him. Don't listen to the devil when he says that. You can do a mitzvah right now, no matter what you did yesterday, no matter what you're going to do tomorrow, no matter what you're going to do in an hour from now, no matter what you're going to do at 6 o'clock tonight, you could do a mitzvah right now. Don't let the Yetzer Hara stop you from doing a mitzvah right now. And maybe you won't do something later also. And the same thing, they say that by the Gra, there was a maskel. And the Gra was talking to this maskel, and the maskel had something to eat, and the Gra said, you got to make a bracha. The maskel said, Rebbe, you know who I am? I'm an atheist. Chas v'shalom rachmana litzlan. Nobody's really an atheist. They think they are. They're fooling themselves. Like Rabbi Nachman says, the God you don't believe in, I don't believe in either. The Romans used to call Jews and Christians atheists because our God is invisible. So like that, we could call us atheists, that we have an invisible God. And you know how many sins I do, and you expect me to say shahakal right now? And the Gra says, you're going to have to answer for that shahakal too. You don't get a free pass, just a one-time pass that you can do whatever you want. You're going to have to answer for that shahakal. But the other point of that is even if you didn't, that's one approach. But the other approach is, even if you didn't say shahakal yesterday, you can say shahakal right now. And it's true. Today I'm wearing a blue shirt and a tie, but I'm also wearing a bekasha. Well, I am going to go to a wedding later. So I have a tie on, a blue shirt. And I wasn't ashamed to go to the mikveh. Well, maybe a little bit, because everybody else is dressed much more chassidish. And tomorrow I'll wear a white shirt, and maybe I'll wear tzitzis on top of the shirt. Maybe I won't. Now I have tzitzis underneath because I have a blue shirt. It'll look silly to have the tzitzis on top. But I'm still wearing tzitzis, Baruch Hashem. Also, don't take that for granted. Like the Vilna Gaon, in his last moments of his life, is looking at his tzitzis and how you can buy something eternal for so cheap. So the main point I want to say is, follow your own Rabbanim, live your life, be normal. Don't be an extremist. Someone's asking me, I want to know what's your Seder Limud and Tefillah and everything, because I want to copy exactly what you're doing. Don't do that. I remember I used to ask him, Moshe Weinberger, what do you do, this and that? And he's like, what difference does it make what Moshe Weinberger has to do? And if a big rabbi like that with thousands of Hasidim can say that, so me, a little rabbi with 2 or 3 Hasidim, could also I'll say the same thing. You find what works for you. I used to have more and I lost most of them. You find what works for you. You don't have to copy me. That's silly. That's ridiculous. I found what works for me. And you find what works for you. I mean, the Satmar Rav didn't want people to copy him. And a lot of things I like to copy him just because I like what he did. But there's certain things he didn't do that I like to do. He didn't read the Haggadah on Shabbos HaGadol like the Gra. But my Rav, he does, and I like doing it. And I enjoy doing it. So I do it. I don't have to do everything Satmar Rav did. And other things I do that they do in Tolasar and Tolasar Mitzvah and Biala and this and that and Kalav. And I chaperine what works for me. But you have to learn and know how to do that. All right, God bless you. I remember a friend of mine found out his Zaydas were visions of Chassidim. So he went to the Kosovo Rebbe. It was a Vishnitz Reinikel. And he's a Dayan in Vishnitz. And he said, I found a Siddur from Vishnitz and a Machzer from Vishnitz. And the weekday davening, the Machzer has differences in the Nusach from the Siddur. Which one should I do? And the Kosovo Rebbe, Zal Gesund sein, is a big Talmud Chochem, a Dayan. I remember he's the one who gave me the heter to go make weddings for non-Jewish couples. Even though I was doing it before, I asked him, but someone said, oh, you should ask a Dayan something, so I asked him. And so he said, he speaks English very clearly, the American boy, even though, in Yiddish, he's, when you speak, when he's by the tish, he's like in another world, and then you talk to him, and he's so normal and down to earth. He's like, they're both Jewish, doesn't make it or break it. That's exactly what he said. I thought later, it doesn't make it or break it, it's a Lashon Mishnah, it's a Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah. All right. God bless you. Please like, share, and subscribe, and comment, and thank you for watching. And do whatever works for you, as long as it's according to halacha. I'm certainly not giving a heter for anyone to break halacha. And follow your local Rav. But what if you don't? You have to understand where you're living, what you're doing. The other considerations are, the Sikhs aren't ashamed to go with the beard and the turban. Muslim women are not ashamed to go with the hijab. We don't have to be ashamed either. The hippies, they have beards. We have a beard. Hipsters wear hats. We could wear a hat. Medafnish Zargan, Medafnish Shaman. But maybe it's not for you. Maybe it doesn't fit with your personality. Find your relationship with God through halacha, through the Shulchan Aruch, through the words of Chazal, through Torah, and live a nice, from life and be blessed. God bless you. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe, and have a good year.